I refuse to fight. My government says I am a criminal. I left my country because the alternative was prison or war. Can I get asylum? This is the question we hear from people across 10 different countries: Russia, Ukraine, Eritrea, Tajikistan, Ethiopia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Syria, Albania, South Sudan. In some of these countries, refusing military service means 15 years in prison. In others, it means being grabbed off the street and sent to fight. In Eritrea, it means serving in the army for 20 years with no end date.
Because there was the last 20 years, the regime in Eritrea has deceived nationals, Wayane, which means the Ethiopian, will start one-day war, so they need to keep all these military conscript for 2 decades.
Today, we look at 37 real asylum cases from our database. We analyze the laws, the punishments, and the evidence, country by country. We base these videos on the analysis of real cases of people facing persecution in their home countries. We are country expert witnesses from London, focusing on human rights violations. We receive cases from major law firms who represent asylum seekers in the United Kingdom, United States, Canada, and the European Union. Our goal is to prepare evidence-based assessments and expert witness reports for asylum tribunals. Today, forced mobilization and military service. Let us start with the numbers. How big is this problem? After Russia announced partial mobilization in September 2022, more than 250,000 men fled the country within days. They went to Kazakhstan, Georgia, Finland, Turkey. Border queues were 30 kilometers long. In Ukraine, since 2024, the government changed the mobilization law. Now, men between 25 and 60 can be drafted. Thousands have been detained on the streets by recruitment officers. People call it busification. You walk down the street and they put you in a bus to a military center. Eritrea, national service has no end date. The law says 18 months. The reality, people serve for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. Eritrea is one of the top source countries for refugees in the world. Globally, in 2024, the number of asylum applications worldwide reached 8.4 million, the highest number ever recorded. Many of these people fled forced military service. Let us start with Russia, because we have the most cases from this country. 12 cases in our database, all connected to forced mobilization. September 21st, 2022, President Putin signed decree number 647, partial mobilization. 300,000 men were called to fight in Ukraine. 3 days later, Russia changed its criminal code. Federal Law 365 FZ. Here is what it says now. Article 337. Leaving your military unit without permission, to 10 years in prison. Article 338. Desertion, to 15 years. Article 332. Refusing a military order during mobilization, to 3 years. Article 328. Evasion of military service, to 2 years. In the first half of 2024 alone, 427 people were convicted under this article. In 2023, Russia introduced electronic military summons. This means a summons is sent digitally and it is considered delivered even if you do not read it. If you do not appear within 20 days, you cannot leave Russia, you cannot drive, you cannot sell property. From our cases, here is a typical situation. A young man receives a military summons. He has anti-war views, does not want to fight in Ukraine, leaves Russia. He is a criminal under Russian law. If he returns, prison. In another case, a man was already politically active. He attended protests. When mobilization started, he became a double target. Anti-war opinion plus draft evasion. The UK Home Office recognizes that Russia's mobilization remains legally open-ended. It was never officially cancelled. And the criminal penalties are real. Now, Ukraine. This is a difficult topic because Ukraine is fighting a war of survival. The law still matters. In 2024, Ukraine passed a new mobilization law. All men between 25 and 60 must register. Conscription age was lowered from 27 to 25, and the law removed the 36-month service limit, meaning soldiers serve indefinitely. Article 336 of the Criminal Code, evasion of conscription during mobilization. 3 to 5 years in prison. But the real problem is what happens on the streets. Territorial recruitment centers, called TCC, send officers to find men. They check documents at metro stations, concerts, parks. If you do not have an exemption, they can detain you on the spot. In 2024, more than 3,400 official complaints were filed about TCC violence, men dragged into vans, men beaten. The practice is called bussification. From our cases, one woman fled Ukraine with her family because her husband faced forced conscription. He had completed his military service years ago, but when the war started, he was at risk of being called again. He left in March 2022. In another case, a man from Ukraine had moral and religious objections to fighting. Ukraine's constitutional court has conceded conscientious objection, but in practice, the right to alternative service is almost impossible to exercise during wartime. The UK Home Office published a SIPIN on Ukraine military service in September 2025. It confirms that conscription is enforced, alternatives are limited, and penalties are real. Eritrea is one of the most extreme examples in the world. In 1995, Eritrea passed Proclamation 82, national service for all citizens, men and women from age 18 to 40. Law says 18 months. But the reality, the government extended it indefinitely. There is no end date. The UN Special Rapporteur has called this forced labor. People are sent to Sawa military training camp, often at age 16 or 17. They work for the government for almost no pay. If they try to leave, they are arrested, tortured, put in underground cells or shipping containers.
There is a culture of impunity for the perpetrators of human rights violations and abuses, including detention, inhumane and degrading treatment, and punishment of Eritreans through torture, forced labor and sexual violence, religious and ethnic minority oppression.
The Frontline documentary Escaping Eritrea showed secret footage from inside the prisons. People locked in metal shipping containers in the desert heat. And leaving Eritrea is also a crime. If you cross the border illegally, which is the only way most people can leave, that is a separate offense. Shoot to kill orders exist at the border. From our cases, young men who fled Eritrea before being called to national service. One received a letter ordering him to report. He left the country instead. Another fled as a child and has lived as a refugee ever since. The UK Home Office SIPIN on Eritrea, updated December 2025, confirms that national service remains indefinite and that illegal exit is punished. In Tajikistan, military service is compulsory for men aged 18 to 27. But the way conscription works, it is often violent. Reports describe military raids on villages called oblava. 40% of conscripts arrive through kidnapping. Men are detained at checkpoints, taken from workplaces and forced into service. The conditions inside the army are brutal. More than 100 soldiers died from hazing between 2019 and 2021. From our case, a man from Tajikistan received 3 military summons. He did not report. Forced conscription is not just a threat in Tajikistan. It is standard practice. For dual nationals or people who have lived abroad, returning to Tajikistan means they can be immediately conscripted upon arrival. Ethiopia. Forced recruitment by the government is happening right now. In 2023, the Amhara conflict started when the government tried to disarm regional militias called Fano. Since then, the government has been forcibly conscripting civilians to fight. In 2024, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission confirmed forced conscription, including children. An 11-year-old boy was found detained for recruitment. From our case, a man of Amhara ethnicity refused forced recruitment by government forces. He was detained, physically abused, and threatened. His Christian beliefs made him oppose violence. He fled. Azerbaijan. Military service is compulsory. Man must register with military authorities before traveling abroad. In the context of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, service carries real danger. Evasion is a criminal offense, and the political environment means that anyone who refuses can also face harassment or persecution by the state. From our case, a man who completed military service in the 1990s, but his political opposition and family situation put him at risk. In Azerbaijan, military service and political loyalty are closely connected. Belarus, is widely recognized as a co-belligerent in Russia's war against Ukraine. The country provides its territory for Russian missile strikes and drone attacks. It supplies Russia with military equipment, training, and logistics. Military service is compulsory, 18 months for most, 12 for graduates. In 2024, Presidential Decree number 48 eliminated most exemptions. Conscripts have been exposed to logistics supporting Russian military operations. Some were reportedly tasked with cleaning vehicles containing human remains. From our case, a Belarusian man faced conscription into an army that directly supports Russia's war. Serving means potential complicity in war crimes. South Sudan, forced recruitment, including children. Since the civil war started in 2013, both government and opposition forces have used child soldiers. Human Rights Watch documented more than 15 commanders who recruited children by force. Children were physically forced onto trucks and taken to training camps. From our case, a young man from South Sudan was forced to flee as a child because of this exact situation. Albania. While military conscription was abolished, forced recruitment by criminal groups and blood feud dynamics create similar situations. People flee because they are forced into violence, not by the state, but by non-state actors the state cannot control. Syria, Legislative Decree number 30 from 2007 makes military service compulsory for men aged 18 to 42. Under Article 68, evasion during wartime carries up to 5 years in prison. Under Article 101, desertion carries 5 to 15 years. Many Syrians fled specifically to avoid fighting for a government accused of war crimes. Now, the main question. Question every asylum seeker asks. Is it dangerous to return? The answer depends on the country. Across all 10 countries we analyzed, there is a common pattern. The state either forces you to serve in an army that commits violations, or the state punishes you for refusing. In both cases, the risk upon return is real. Let us look at what international law says. The Geneva Convention, the 1951 Refugee Convention, says that a person qualifies for asylum if they face persecution for one of 5 reasons: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership of a particular social group. Refusing military service can be a political opinion. The UNHCR Handbook, paragraph 171, says that punishment for desertion or draft evasion may amount to persecution if the military service involves acts contrary to basic rules of human conduct. What does that mean? If the army you are being forced to join commits war crimes, your refusal is protected. If the punishment for refusal is disproportionate, that is also persecution. There is another important concept: internal relocation. Courts often ask, can you just move to another city in your country? For military service cases, the answer is almost always no. Here is why. In Russia, the electronic summons system is nationwide. There is no city where you can hide from conscription. Your passport is flagged. In Eritrea, the government controls the entire country. There are checkpoints everywhere. Internal relocation is impossible. In Ukraine, the TCC system operates in every region. The draft applies nationally. In Ethiopia, forced recruitment happens across multiple regions: Amhara, Oromia, and others. In almost every country we analyzed, the military service obligation is nationwide. You cannot escape it by moving to a different city. The methods that would be applied against a person who returns contradict the 1951 Geneva Convention on the Status of Refugees, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the European Convention on Human Rights. Article 3, Prohibition of Torture. Article 4, Prohibition of Forced Labor. And Article 9, Right to Liberty. In the experts' assessment, across all 10 countries analyzed, forced return of a person who refused military service carries significant risk. The expert witness cannot accept or reject the applicant's testimony. That is the court's role. But if the court accepts the testimony and the persecution context is confirmed by country evidence, then, in the expert's opinion, the risk upon return is real. In every country we analyze today, the pattern is the same. The state forces military service. The person refuses for reasons of conscience, politics, or survival. The state punishes them. the punishment is disproportionate. And internal relocation does not solve the problem. This is why forced mobilization and military service refusal is one of the strongest grounds for asylum when supported by evidence. This is why a personal assessment of each individual case is critically important. The same situation, draft evasion, can be assessed very differently depending on the country, the timing, and the individual's specific circumstances. Every case needs its own evidence, its own country report, its own risk assessment,